Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Danny. Danny, we've just heard the news that Anthony Joshua will be fighting Dillian Whyte on August the 12th after what feels like years of back and forth on social media, on radio, on kind of boxing media interviewing various people asking their opinion on it. But it is official. Anthony Joshua will be fighting Dillian Whyte in what is a rematch from their fight in 2015. What are give me your thoughts on this finally being announced?
Yeah, as you say, it feels like for a fight that on the face of it makes sense for the both of them. It's been quite hard to get here. There's been sort of speculation that first that Dillian didn't actually want it, and then that AJ and his team didn't actually want it, and I'm not sure where the truth actually sits, but we've got here. Like you call a spade a spade. It's not the fight it maybe was. There's a stage, a Joshua Whyte rematch would have been probably could have done a stadium. I don't think that's the case now at all. Like it's obviously landed at the O2. I think it probably will sell out the O2, but like if we're being realistic, there are fighters whose stocks are a lot lower than they were 2 years ago. Hopefully we see a nice entertaining build up. I think the fight needs it. I think it needs the needle. They've obviously known each other for a long time. I'm sure we'll come on to like the fight itself and what we expect to happen sort of later on. But yeah, it is what it is, isn't it? I don't know. I'm sure when the fight comes, when it gets to the fight night, you always get a bit more excited than you think you do sort of in the build up. But yeah, I'm not particularly surprised that we've got here.
No, and what do you think about Dillian Whyte as an opponent? There were other guys who were rumored to be fighting instead of Dillian Whyte. Ajit Caballero was one, I believe Otto Allen was one. Obviously, look, we know what the situation is with Joshua. Apparently, this Wilder fight looks good for happening in Saudi in December or January, possibly. So I think I think it's finding that right opponent who isn't too much of a risk, but isn't just going to kind of go down on the first shot that Joshua hits them. And I think at this stage of his career, especially after the Usyk losses, and the Franklin fight as well, Joshua needs names. He needs a kind of competitive fight. If he fights against someone who neither of us have really heard of, no one really knows anything about, I just don't think it's going to sell much. Whereas people in British boxing, British sport, know who Dillian Whyte is. Just your thoughts on selecting Dillian Whyte as an opponent.
I think it makes a lot of sense commercially and potentially from sort of improving Joshua's mentality. As you say, like Dillian Whyte, whatever we think he might have left, he is a name. He's headline pay-per-views off his own back. Not the fighter he was, but you would imagine he'll come and sort of force Joshua to fight. You would hope so anyway. He would come and have a go, and then Joshua will have no choice but to sort of bite down on his gum shield. Because I think if Joshua was to even have another one of these sort of 12-round laboured decision wins, like I don't think a lot of people, it feels like, are giving him a great deal of a chance against Joshua Wilder. Against Deontay Wilder, and then that would only obviously decline. As I say, they've obviously known each other since they were teenagers. I don't know how much dislikes actually there now, if I'm being honest. I think, like, don't get me wrong, they're not the best of mates, but I think there was a stage there was real genuine needle there, whereas I think now they see this as what it is, and like we'll both make a bit of money here. But I think it could be a good opponent in terms of, like, as I say, Joshua. Dwight will not come to box him, whereas like a Caballero, very much a boxer. So in that sense, in terms of getting this like sort of dog or like the aggression back, it could be a good fight for that. And let's be honest, if Joshua knocks out Whyte in like convincing fashion, people will start to get like, that'll do good numbers. People will see that, the casual will see that, and like, I've got very short memories in sport, boxing fans probably more so than anyone. So that you might start seeing people say, oh, like Josh is like got his mojo back, he'll chin Wilder and stuff. So I think it makes sense from a few angles, to be honest.
Yeah. Look, I think as you said, look, they're like people, when it comes to the nights, people will be excited, people will be tuning in. They want to see what sort of performance Joshua gives and how much of a challenge Whyte gives to Joshua. What do you see happening on August the 12th, Danny? I think Look, it does still interest me because there are a lot of people who think that Dillian Whyte is maybe done at the top level. If you saw what happened in his fight against Fury, you obviously had that kind of bad stoppage against Povetkin, which was a while back now. Came back against Povetkin, who didn't quite look the same. So arguably, Dillian Whyte's not given us a impressive performance for quite a while now. Whereas with Joshua, don't need to go into much detail, but his last performance against Franklin was criticised. He maybe kind of didn't look like the Joshua of 4 or 5 years ago. Looked a bit not scared, but just kind of a bit hesitant with his punches, and just didn't look like the same fighter. What do you see happening in a few weeks' time?
As I say, I hope Whyte comes and sort of sticks it on him, because that'll tell us a lot about, like, is Joshua just physically incapable of, sort of going to war again? But that, like, Tyson Fury performance from Whyte, like, obviously Joshua now is not the test Fury would have been last April, but he didn't even like come and he tried to sort of like tentatively box Fury, and I'm just hoping we really don't see that, because if that happens and Joshua starts boxing as well, I wouldn't be surprised if it went the distance. But I do think Whyte will think, like, look, this could be sort of my last big payday. Like, I've got history with this fella. I'm just going to come and, as we've seen Whyte do before, sort of stick it on him. And if that happens, I do think Joshua in that case, like, cause I don't think Whyte's a massive puncher. He's got a very good left hook, but aside from that, I don't think, like, he's a one punch puncher. I've never seen him like flatten anyone with a right hand or anything like that. So I think Joshua would find a home, and Whyte's looked like as if his punch resistance has started really deteriorated over the few years, and Joshua throws a good uppercut, which is sort of famously a punch Whyte struggles with. So if that plays out in that sense, I think Joshua would stop him sort of somewhere around the middle rounds.
Yeah, no, definitely a possibility. Final question from me, Danny. I think it's been a draining few weeks for kind of people like us, maybe for those involved in trying to make this fight. I personally think that the last few weeks has possibly been some sort of PR exercise to get interest in the fight drummed up, because those involved know that Joshua isn't at his peak when it comes to interest. Whyte hasn't delivered us a good performance for a while, as I said. Would you agree that there's possibly this fight maybe has been done for a while now, or has been close to being done for a while now, but there's just been kind of a forced back and forth to drum up interest with the casual fan? Maybe a bit of a controversial statement, but it's been going around my mind the last couple of days. What would your thoughts be on that?
Yeah, I would definitely not rule that out. Like, as I said at the start of the video, it's like, who would Dillian Whyte fight if not Joshua, where he could earn anything close to the figures that he would get for Joshua, even if he is slightly underpaid. And as well, how quickly the sort of rematch clause was removed. Like, as soon as Whyte says, "Oh, I'm not fighting," there's a rematch clause, and he went on TalkSport with, like, under like a sort of mainstream platform, it was just like removed within hours, it felt like. As you say, like, the commercial interest in Josh is not what it was. It took a long time to sell out the O2 against Jermaine Franklin. I think this will eventually sell out at the O2, but I don't think this will be like one where the tickets go straight away. Honestly, I don't. But yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. I'm sure there's some people who'll like think you've got like your tinfoil hat on, but there's, like, in boxing, shady stuff is, it's not that it's shady, but stuff like this is sort of utilized all the time. And I think, like, as much as we complain about, like, the back and forth between promoters and fighters and stuff, like, that's sort of what keeps the sport going at times, to be honest, because especially in this country, it feels like it's certainly not the fights half the time. So yeah, I would definitely not rule that out.
Yeah, and look, you've got to appreciate fights like this need to capture the imagination of the casual fan.
Yeah.
And they need something to kind of buy into, whether that's a certain character at a time or a storyline. That's what they buy into, without kind of necessarily caring about how good Joshua's last performance was, what's Whyte done the last couple of years. So I think that's a possibility, but one way or another, the fight has now officially been made, and we will see what happens on August 12th. Danny, thank you very much for joining me. We'll speak to you more about this fight in the next few weeks, amongst other things as well. Thanks again.
Thanks, mate.